The Existential Man Podcast, Episode 1. What is up, guys? Welcome to the Existential Man Podcast. Thank you for tuning in. Here at the Existential Man, we're going to explore some topics and how they affect the uniquely masculine in us all. Today, on Episode 1, we're going to start from the beginning and give you a little background about the host, the show, and how it got started, and why the title The Existential Man is so fitting. And finally, we're going to leave you with some life lessons and also give you a couple action steps to take on your journey to becoming an existential man. So stay tuned. What's going on, guys? Matt here again, and thank you for checking out the Existential Man Podcast. Let's get right into it. So obviously I am your host, Matt Volkman. I am a husband. My wife and I just recently celebrated our 10-year anniversary. And, like every relationship, every marriage, we've had ups and downs, mostly ups, and the downs have not been all that bad. But, there's some things with relationships that we are going to address later on in later episodes. But ultimately, those of you that have a significant other or have obviously been in serious relationships, you understand that there's nothing perfect about a relationship, even if it is a perfect relationship for you. That being said, we'll address those as time goes on, and we'll get into some more specific details and ways that maybe my perspective can help you address some issues in your relationship. I'm a father of 5. We have 2 older ones, 22 and 21, 15-year-old, a 9-year-old, and a 4-year-old. So we've got them spread all across the gamut. As I said, with my older ones, they're old enough to have kids of their own, although I'm crossing my fingers that does not happen anytime soon, because I'm too young to be a grandpa, I think. But, we'll see. We'll see. I got one that I fully expected from, and one that I really don't anticipate her ever having kids. So we'll just have to see. I'm a veteran of the United States military. I served proudly for a number of years, and unfortunately, due to an accident during a combat readiness training, I am no longer able to serve. But I do continue to serve in a civilian capacity, working with the services. So, that's kind of what I do. Let's see here. There's a number of labels that, we kind of either are given or place upon ourselves. So let's see here. Father, husband, veteran, got a ton of life experience. Oh, yeah. And I am a man. So, hey, that makes me somewhat uniquely qualified to talk about some of the topics that we're going to address. As we move on, we're going to be addressing some things, as the intro stated, that they're very specific, not necessarily to men per se, but to the masculine in us all. And by men and masculinity, let's avoid, or I guess address the whole PC kind of politically correct, gender neutral thing. Look, guys, I am a man. I was born with man parts. I identify as a man. If you identify the same way and you have the same parts, this podcast is for you. If you don't identify the same way, I don't know what to tell you. I'm addressing these concerns as I see them. And frankly, the way that I look at it is, logically speaking, very few people that identify as something other than a man are going to understand the concepts and the constructs and the logic of where some of my arguments come from. I am no expert by any means. I'm just a man that's lived, about about half my life, and have encountered a number of things along the way: death, destruction, depression, anxiety, life-altering injuries, you name it. In terms of general tragedies, triumphs, I've probably either seen it, experienced it myself, or watched others go through it. So hopefully we are all on the same page, and we can get down to business and start working on our own journeys. This is a journey for me, just as it is for you. Part of the reason that we decided to start this podcast, myself and a couple of friends of mine who are helping me behind the scenes, is because we have seen a severe lack of care, concern, and empathy for the modern male, if you will. And that's why the Existential Man was brought to life. We live in a society that is, by all accounts, and rightfully so, focused on the feminine and female rights. And for a long, long time, they didn't have much. And so it's understandable that we've gotten to this point. However, I think, and this is my personal opinion, I don't speak for any organization out there, but I think it's gone too far. And I say that to say not that women aren't entitled to rights, because they absolutely are, but I don't think either gender is entitled to any rights at the expense of the other. And that is kind of the direction that we're heading now. So much to the point where if a feminist or a person who believes in female rights and maybe even female power listens to this podcast, she's probably going to take offense to a lot of things that I say, or he, maybe, if it's a male feminist. But the fact is that there's numbers, there's studies, there's things that we will address that can actually counter that, and it's fact based. So I will take the facts, I will give my opinion, but at the end of the day, the facts are the facts. You can't dispute facts. So, as I said, guys, this is episode 1. So, like I said, this is a journey for me, just as it is for you. And I hope that you'll continue to subscribe, or I hope that you will subscribe and continue to listen as we get further along into some other episodes. Mainly today, I just wanted to focus on kind of introducing myself and introducing the show. And, I got a couple important points that I want to talk about towards the end here. But let's get into the Existential Man as a show. Kind of talked a little bit about why we're here, is to address some things that are specific to the masculine in us all. Now, if you're a woman and you happen to be listening, and maybe you want your man to be a little bit more masculine and take a little bit more of that masculine energy and put it out into the world, feel free to have him join us. And any questions that you guys have, feel free to leave them in the comments section, or leave us a review on iTunes, Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, whatever your favorite podcast player is. Also, check us out at existentialman.com, where you'll be able to find additional content down the road as we get it all set up and going. So let's see here. Existential. Okay, so existentialism. It is a philosophical theory, basically, that states that it is the human existence that kind of trumps all. It's mostly about the human experience and freedom of the human experience, and I like that concept, but I feel like it's more tied for me to focusing on my individual existence and my purpose. Why am I here? What are the things that I am responsible for during my time on this earth? And so, and I think that's an important thing for all people, not just men, to focus on, but that is my focus, is making the most out of my existence and creating a legacy, and leaving my children and my children's children with someone that they can be proud of, and something that makes my life have meaning outside of the everyday. Obviously, man, as I said before, man, if you're born with the parts of a man and you identify as a man, that's who I'm referring to. This is not to exclude anybody else, but that's what this is for. If you don't like it, feel free to unsubscribe. Feel free to never listen to another episode. That is perfectly fine. I don't do this for ratings. I don't do it for listeners. I do it because personally, for me, it is a creative release. It is a way for me to share my thoughts, my viewpoints, and the hope that I can help somebody else. I've expressed many of these thoughts and viewpoints to close friends of mine, including the ones that are helping me behind the scenes. And they've been just kind of in awe of the information and my perspective, and have told me, you really need to start talking about this. You really need to share it. So here I am. So again, guys, thank you for joining us along on this journey, and I can't keep thanking you enough. And really, what's more important to me is I really hope you guys get something out of this. So I really hope you'll give me a chance. You stay tuned, and I promise there's going to be something in here for you at some point. So keep tuned in. So, anyways, moving forward. Some things that I want to kind of leave you guys with. It's going to be a short episode today just because I really wanted to get into starting and introducing myself, the podcast, and leave you with a couple things to think about before the next episode, and hopefully eventually tie some of these things in, and we'll do some episodes and expanding on some of these concepts later on down the road. But what started this all was conversations that I've had with close friends of mine, both men and women, who surprisingly agreed with some of my, what I thought at the time to be interesting and possibly skewed viewpoints that don't seem to be that skewed after all. But the other thing was, I was looking back on some notes that I had jotted down. I don't know if you guys remember when Facebook had the notes application or the notes section in Facebook. I mean, it was brand new. Well, not brand new, but Facebook was relatively new at the time. It was still only a couple years old. I was fresh out of college, and I was in one of my reflective moods at the time, and I had wrote down some notes on the Facebook, and I came across it. It was about a decade ago that I wrote these down, and it was probably right before I met my wife, actually. But it was interesting to look at some of the stuff, and some of it's like a little bit of filled with a little bit of naivete, but most of it still holds true. I still believe in most of it. But I'll leave you with a couple of things, and we'll talk a little bit more about it. But one of the things is the most important things that I still do daily is take time to reflect on yourself. I think on the list it was like rule number 12, but it's probably in the top 5 for me at this point. And the reality is if you don't take time to reflect on yourself and give yourself that time of introspection, you can't focus on ways to grow, and not just ways that you need to grow, but ways that you want to grow. Maybe there's things that you want to accomplish that if you don't take the time to breathe, because we all know how hectic life can get. If you don't take the time to breathe and just sit and be with yourself and think about your direction, and if you're satisfied with your direction, you'll never mentally plan for the next step, because that's just as important. If you don't know where you're going, how can you make the first step to get there? You got to have a plan. And the only way to know where you're going is to know where you've been. So you got to understand how you got to where you're at. Make a decision to change or continue doing the same thing if it's working for you. Hell, that shit's on you, man. Like, you got to decide what's right for you. But the fact of the matter is, if you don't take time to reflect on yourself, where you've been, where you're at now, and how you got here, and then where you want to go, you'll never be able to take that next step moving forward. Another one that I really liked was control your emotions so you can control your life, right? So I can't even remember who said this. Eleanor Roosevelt maybe said something to the effect of, nobody can make you feel any emotion that you don't allow them to make you feel. And I was having a conversation, interestingly, with my mother-in-law the other day. And we got into a conversation about her and one of her family members, and she has some issues with this family member. But, I basically said, it's like, you decide your reaction to somebody else's action, right? Obviously, we have emotions. It's a human thing. We have emotions. We feel fear. We feel anger. We feel sadness. We feel happiness. We feel depression. We feel joy. We feel elated. There's a lot of things that we can feel, and sometimes we feel them all at the same damn time. But how we control the outward expression of those emotions is the most important part. Now, I'm not saying that you bottle it all up, because let's face it, that's a traditionally male thing to do. We don't tend to talk about our emotions very much, and it's not really all that healthy. And I'm just as guilty as the next person. It's really not all that healthy, though, because what ends up happening is you start to think about it. When you do start to think about it, and it kind of eventually turns into this snowball effect where you're not letting any of this shit out, and then all of a sudden you explode. You either get angry, or the stupidest little thing makes your eyes water and makes you start to cry, or whatever the case may be. So this kind of ties into the last one too. Take time to reflect on yourself and control your emotions so you can control your life. You've got to take time with yourself to learn how to effectively and efficiently express these emotions outwardly. If you explode every time something pisses you off, well, people aren't going to want to be around you. If every time you see something sad or something that gets you down, you start to crying, again, people aren't necessarily going to want to be around you. Men, I will tell you a secret. If you are a man who is looking for a woman and you are not yet in a serious relationship, well, hell, even if you are in a serious relationship, generally speaking, and I say generally speaking, and this is going to go for the entire show, not just this episode, but all future episodes coming up. Generally speaking, women do not want an extremely emotive man. Why? Because it shows you don't have control of yourself. Hence the rule. Control your emotions so you can control your life. So, learn how to keep that shit in check. I promise you it's going to go a long way. And the third rule that I'm going to get to today, this is one that I really, really loved, because how at 10 years ago when I thought looking back, I thought it was really immature at the time. But looking back, this is kind of an insightful thing. It says, become who you want to be, but love the person you are. And I think it's very important to know that it's okay to be okay with who you are right now. It's okay to not be okay with who you are right now either, or as well, but you need to love you, the person. Forget about all the titles and the bullshit that comes with the titles, right? Yes, you're a father. Yes, you're a husband. Yes, you might be a janitor at the local school, but that's not who you are. Okay, who you are is the caring person that happens to love babies, that happens to take care of elderly people, that happens to do these things. Though it's the things that you do out of the person that you are that make you who you are, right? So, and I don't even like to put it like that. I don't really have a good definition for it. But this is, again, this ties into reflecting on yourself, and maybe take time to reflect on yourself needs to be number one, because it really ties into a lot of this stuff. Knowing yourself and being comfortable with who you are is so very important to your own mental well-being. And the mental well-being is what leads to a lot of other things. Studies have shown that depression not only affects your mental, but it also affects your physical well-being, creates hormone imbalances, creates overweight or underweight, inability to process nutrients the way that your body's supposed to, increases, cortisol levels, your stress hormone, which leads to a whole host of other complications from a physical health standpoint. So become who you want to be and never stop working towards that end, but love the person that you are today. If you don't love you, you cannot expect other people to love you either. You have to be okay with who you are and invite other people in to show you the real you. And don't be afraid to show it, right? Don't be you can't be afraid to show other people who you are, because ultimately, here's the rub, all right? Never let anybody else's impression of you affect who you are and how you present yourself to the world. If somebody doesn't like who you are, fuck them. Let them go on their merry way. There's going to be another person coming along that's going to love everything about you. All right. And I'm not talking about men and women. I'm talking about people in general, right? I've got really good friends that like damn near everything about me. I've also got friends that they could take me or leave me, or parts of me anyways, but they like some of the things that I bring to the table. We'll address the friendships / relationship thing later on down the road, but ultimately you got to love who you are inside, because if you are not okay with you, nobody else is going to be okay with you either. You've got to be willing to show that real you, that raw you to the world. Let it shine, man. Put it out there. And if somebody doesn't like it, move on. They're not worth your time. Seriously. If they don't like who you are and what you bring to the table, move on. Don't waste your time on people who don't have time for you. It's really that simple. And another thing, loyalty and honesty are hard to find, and their worth is indescribable. That was like lesson 14, maybe 15. And it's right up there in the top 5 for me now. It really is hard to find people that are loyal and honest and that'll stick with you through anything. So when you find it, hold on to it and don't take advantage of it, regardless of what you do. And on the flip side, be loyal and honest to those in your life that are important. Because again, it's hard to find. So when people do find it in you, they'll want to keep you around because they are so valuable. They're such valuable qualities that you can't find it anywhere else. So the lessons today: take time to reflect on yourself. Okay. Control your emotions so you can control your life. Become who you want to be, but love the person that you are today. And loyalty and honesty are hard to find, and their worth is indescribable. So take those. Hopefully they'll help you out. It's really good. It's been really good for me to reflect back on these and look at them, because there's things that I would add, there's things that I would take away, but those are some of the top 4 probably that I like to continue to reflect back on. So, guys, we're going to end it here. Hopefully you guys have gotten something good out of it. And definitely stay tuned. Next week, the next episode, we're going to talk about the 5 Ps, my 5 Ps for anything that you want to accomplish in life. They're going to be very important for you, or at least I find them very important for me when I analyze anything, any goal that I have up to and including life itself. So stay tuned, guys. Keep rocking on, keep working on yourselves, keep growing, and make sure to hit the subscribe button in your favorite podcast player so you don't miss the next episode. And we will catch you guys on the flip side. Until then, stay strong, be good, men. Bye.